Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Connect the Dots Roundtable. And I know that many of you will have the silly season coming up. We've got Black Friday, we've got Christmas, we've got all of that period where so many businesses make their money and just not really sure which way they need to go. There are so many options out there. People are thinking about rebranding, throwing more money at ads, looking at slashing prices, doing massive discounts. But do you really need to do any or all of those? And that's why I've got our head of digital experience, our head of experience and design and marketing strategist extraordinaire, Hannah Rubery, with me. And we're going to talk through some of those challenges that businesses are looking at around UX and CRO, those three main options that people generally tend to think of and what they really should be thinking about before they make any decisions. So welcome, Hannah.
Hi.
Stoked to be getting back into these again. Really looking forward to it. And maybe let's just start off with those three sort of key areas that people tend to focus on, and we can go from there. So we've got that silly season coming up. What do you find people generally come to us and ask about, and why is it not necessarily the right thing all of the time?
Yeah. So generally people come to us in the lead up to the silly season thinking about how are they going to beat last year, make the same as they did last year, how can they stand out in the market, all those kinds of things. And generally I say there's 3 points that people gravitate towards doing, and those 3 are either discounting, slashing prices, massive sales, complicated sales as well. The second one is always pumping money into paid media as much as possible. And the third one is rebranding, or trying to clean up their brand and make themselves look pretty and feel luxe. And these are all really important parts of their strategy going into the silly season. So they're not bad things to be looking at, but often people come to these when things are when their revenue is flatlining or even dropping and they're starting to get a bit worried. So I almost call them the panic buttons. It's like, okay, we really need to make more revenue, so we need to discount more. We need to give free shipping. We need to rebrand our website. We need to pump more money into the ads. We need to create more ads, all those sorts of things. And they start to get a bit panicked. And for me, I say, all of those things are things that we can look at. They're great strategies, but you need to first step back and look at your business holistically and your customer and who they are and their journey that they're going to be going on as they convert, to understand why they're there in the first place, what they're looking for, and how they want to do it. So before you look at discounting, which can obviously eat into your margin, before you pump more money into a budget that could just mean that you're leaking money out the bottom and not actually getting any more conversions. And before you look into rebranding and making things look nice, take a step back and think, who is my customer? What are the external factors in their life that are contributing to hesitating to convert? And what are the pain points for them at every point along the journey of their conversion?
Just stepping back a little bit, thinking about those panic buttons, and maybe let's dig into each one of them individually a little bit.
Sure.
And each one of them, I'll say tactically, we've all been doing it for a long time. New Zealand is widely known as, the discount country of the world. People are just so used to discounts that it seems unusual to buy things at full retail. So what is it about discounting, and what's the real risk around having a big sale and the discounts, or constantly being on discount?
Yeah. So the big risk with being constantly discounting is that your customers become primed to have a sale. you think of Briscoes as the best example of that, is that you would never buy anything from Briscoes at full price. No one would ever buy anything from Briscoes at full price because they always have a sale. You know that there's going to be a sale. If it's not on sale today, it'll be on sale tomorrow. So that's what's happening when you continuously push discounting to try and buy sales. That while it works in the short term, you might get a little boost in revenue. You're not going to keep that revenue consistently throughout the year when you're not discounted, because your customers are waiting for that email or that social media post or that paid ad that says, we have a sale now. Now you can purchase. So
sure.
That's the big one for me.
And then I always chuckle a little bit when we're coming into this period and people go, right, we're going to double our ad spend and we're going to do a sale. So they're spending a heap more, reducing their margin. And if just pumping more money into promotion was going to fix the challenge, wouldn't we be doing that 24/7, 365 days a year? So what's the challenge of just, coming into that season and increasing budget?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're doing just pushing money into paid media, you're not actually putting more money into something that necessarily works. So you're sort of just throwing a plaster on something that is leaking already. If it's fine to do that if you know that you've got a really strong roast, you know that ad is performing really, really well, but oftentimes people are just doing it to get more exposure. They think the more people who see it, the more people are going to end up purchasing. But again, if that customer journey or that experience of getting to a conversion is not quite right, that money is just going absolutely nowhere. You're just going to have people see it and then they're going to drop out. So it's really, really important that your basis is really strong in every point of your business, the website, your emails, your social media, all of those touch points are seamless before you try and throw a whole lot of money at it.
Yeah, and also while there may be more people that are primed to buy at a particular time of year, the Black Friday, Cyber Monday type thing, it's also almost, if you think about it, if you've got an e-commerce store especially, and I try and do a correlation to the real estate market, people say that, those that make the profit, those that make the most money, don't buy at the peak of the market, they buy at the low. So why are you spending all of your budget at a time when everybody else is piling in and the cost of acquisition is so high and your margins are then so eroded? You're making less money. And so it's actually a legitimate strategy to have a counterculture of increasing your ad budgets at other times of the year when other people are reducing. So your cost of acquisition is so much less. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be participating in those sales. But when you've got a limited budget, you need to be smart about when you're spending that money as well, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You're just going into sort of muddy waters where everyone has 50% off. So what is it about your 50% off that is more appealing than someone else's 50% off? So yeah, you're definitely better off to think about it strategically throughout the year. Is doing a Black Friday, a Boxing Day sale really the best thing for your business? And if
just
it
because
is,
everybody's doing it doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then the other thing that people tend to do coming into this period is they will focus on the landing page or a particular part of the site, or if they've got certain products that they want to really move, they'll focus on getting those particular landing pages or products or the product shoots looking really amazing. And they forget about the rest of that client experience and that journey and the checkout page and the email nurture sequences. And there can be such a disparate feel to those things that can really hurt businesses, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when it comes to this, there's often a pretty targeted area of the business that they want to work on, and they put all of their time and energy into it. And I mean, we see it time and time again. Business owners are time poor, and so they're really focusing on that one area, and and they oftentimes don't have time to look at everything holistically. But they also, what you do need to understand is that is so essential. And once you've done that really well the first time, then you can save time later down the line to look at those things, those targeted areas, and know that they are building on a really solid foundation that you already have. So you do need to think about, before you take all the beautiful product shots and you create that wonderful landing page and everything looks so nice for that one small bit, that's great. But what happens when someone deviates from the norm? What happens after they've made that sale? How are they nurtured to continue to be a customer with you down the line? You've got to look past the silly season. And if you're not an e-commerce business, how does your customer's experience differ to an e-commerce business? If you don't have an abandoned cart, if you don't have a welcome flow, how does your customer's journey look? So what does that nurture process look? Do you have inbound lead nurture processes in your business? How long is the wait time to hear from someone? All those sorts of things are really important to have in place. And those sorts of things, like beautiful product imagery, great social media content, all those kinds of things are fantastic. And if you're a really big business, a really well-trusted business, you can get away with a lot of things being wrong because the customer knows you, they trust the brand. But when you're a growing business, you have to have everything perfect or you lose them. I always say that you usually have 7 touch points with a customer before they convert. And when you're a growing business, if touch point 1 fails, they're not going to come back for touch point 2 to 7. Yeah. You've lost them.
For those people that know me, they know that I am, a certified scaling up coach. I focus the vast majority of my time on business strategy. And for the decades that I've grown marketing agencies and everything like that, that main driver for me to move away from the marketing side of our business and to help clients around business strategy was all based around something that you touched on before. And it is the foundation, the foundational elements. And I got so sick and tired of working with businesses that were just purely focused on growing revenue and pumping things in and what are we advertising for all of the time, when they had the foundational elements of that client journey and that the business elements were broken. And I had so many conversations around, why are we investing all of this money on something that is fundamentally broken? You are going to be scaling problems for short-term cash, and you are going to hurt yourself for long-term profit and value. And for me, that's a really core part of UX and CRO. That is the absolute foundational elements of why we're in business in the first instance. We need to be ensuring that those people that we are trying to serve and the problems that we are trying to solve for them, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, we need to ensure that their experience is so simple and easy and aligned with what they expect, that they will come back again and again and again. Because if we do not get those foundational elements right, what is the point of beautiful photos? What is the point of spending a lot of money on ads if we can't get the foundation and the basic elements right? And if you do get those things right, then it amplifies the effectiveness of those beautiful product shots, of the great calls to action, of the nice landing page, of all of the ad budget that we spend, of the organic traffic that we may get. So I'm so super stoked that we're having this conversation about it, because it's so important to me. And I think it's something that many of you out there really need to take a step back and think about, is, have we got all of those foundational elements right in our business? And is it better to spend less money on the trappings around it, or what should we be focusing on to get those things right? And so I suppose somebody is now thinking about that, what is that what is a sense check? What are the sorts of things that they should be looking at to get that feel for, have we got the basics right?
Yeah. So a few things that you want to look at is the two main things is functionality and consistency. So functionality is taking a look at your journey and saying, does it convert? What are the call to actions? What is the process once, if your call to action is an add to cart, how does your checkout look? If your call to action is a form, how does the submission process look? What happens once they've submitted? What is your lead time? All those kinds of things. So the actual functionality of the website, does the person get from A to B smoothly, easily, all those sort of things. That one's super important at the moment as well.
What have you got to track that in place so that you know at each step of that journey where the drop-off is, where the bottlenecks are, and what are the things that you can then focus on? Because if you aren't tracking and measuring those things, you can't control or change them. And if all you're doing is focusing on, this is how much I spent, this is how many conversions I got, then you are missing a whole heap of information in the middle. And it's those little touch points in the middle that if you track them and you monitor them and you are fastidious in and around getting the most out of it, that is where I think the biggest gains that can be had, because when you can identify those bottlenecks, sometimes it's surprisingly simple. You know, sometimes with those forms, we're just asking for one or two more fields to be filled out than we probably need to at that stage of the journey. And people are a little bit, I don't want to necessarily give you all of that now. Yeah,
exactly. The big one for me is how often we're stuck on what things look like on our desktop. Because especially business owners, we're working on our laptops all day long. That's how we work, but that's not how your customer is working necessarily. So many of us make all of our purchases and purchase decisions through a mobile. So if you're not putting mobile first, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. Is your form scrollable? Fields overfilling the sides of the mobile? Can they actually see where the call to action is? All those sorts of things can really throw people off. And again, if you have anything wrong, if there's any hesitation for them, you'll just lose them. So it's really important as well that we're thinking about the experience at every point. So mobile, desktop, both essential.
What are some of the other things that we should be thinking about in the sense check?
Yeah, and then I would be thinking about consistency. So the big one that I see is brands having a beautiful website, a great brand voice through social media and through the website, often talking about how they're a luxury brand, for example, and then you sign up to their emails or you abandoned your cart and you receive a generic MailChimp template with an image, some text, the bright blue button, and suddenly your customer goes, hold on, is this the same person I was just looking at? Is that luxury? The luxury is gone all of a sudden. So you have to make sure that at every point of your customer's journey, they're experiencing the same brand. It's really important that the packaging it arrives in continues to have that feel, that brand voice, so that then they feel inclined to continue to come back to you, that the emails feel the same, that the advertising feels the same. Does your brand come across in every aspect of the customer journey? Yeah.
And then beyond that submit button, what are the things that really matter?
Yeah. So we're often focusing on in the service business area, we're often focusing on getting those forms submitted. And a lot of the time, once those submissions come in, nothing happens with them. So you, again, need to think about what happens, how does your customer feel once they've submitted the form that they have nothing to come back? Do they have something that says, thank you, we've received your submission, we're going to respond to you within 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, whatever it might be? Do you have a follow-up if that quote or that service never goes through? What is your sort of plan for retention of that customer.
We've all experienced it, haven't we? We've all been on that service site, whether it's, and I'll give a couple of absolute classic examples, and one of them was actually from a mentoring session that I was having this morning with somebody. But from personal experience, I needed some work done at home, electrician. I went to 3 different websites. Not one of them did I feel like, oh, are these guys, the first 2, I was like, I don't know if these guys are even going to call me back. It just didn't feel like, and there was nothing there that was going to give me the confidence. There was nothing saying, we will call you back within X, we will do this. There was no like promise around that. And when you need something, confidence in an outcome is really important. The last site that I went to, I could tell, and from a marketing perspective, I was like, yeah, these guys are onto it, and they're really slick and everything like that. I got a call back. In fact, I got a text saying to expect a call back. I then got a call back within 15 minutes, and they booked me in on the spot for a time in 2 days after I needed it. Yeah. The beautiful thing was the person actually turned up on time. I got a text message before they came to say that they were on their way. They did a great job, and he even gave me a business card with a QR code on it to leave a Google review afterwards. Yeah. And I was so impressed by the whole experience that the very first thing I did when he left my home was scan that QR code, leave the review before I even got the damn invoice.
Yeah.
I was so happy. Now, in the mentoring session I had this morning, we were talking about this person's business, and they're a service company, they're running ads, and he was talking about the difference between weekdays and weekends. And initially, super impressed. We call back within 30 minutes of the lead coming through, and I was like, man, you must be picking up heaps of work. And he goes, yeah, we do, but weekends are a bit of a non-event. The leads that we get on the weekends rarely convert. I was saying, well, why do you think that is? And he goes, well, by the time we get back to them on Monday and Tuesday, we just don't think that they're good quality leads. I'm like, well, do you think that they're good quality leads, or do you think somebody else has already got in touch with them and beaten you to it, and you're just getting that soft no? So he was thinking about, do I actually stop advertising on the weekend? Saying, well, do you want to stop advertising on the weekend when most people have actually got time to jump on their phones and do a search? And, if they have taken the time to make contact, are you just getting beaten to the punch by somebody that's actually just said, well, hey, let's just take turns. You're on the weekend roster this weekend. And so you're so right when it comes to that experience beyond the submit button. What else are you doing around that experience for that person that gives them confidence? And that's not just confidence in today's sale or lead, but gives you confidence that they're dealing with a professional, slick outfit that will mean that they will not only use you again, they will tell people about it. Because especially, I would say, in the service industry, it is so few and far between that the best thing that you can do for your business to grow is just the basics and do them right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. For instance, if you're a plumber, you've got a burst pipe at home, you're just looking for the first person who's going to be out there to fix that burst pipe for you.
Yep.
And then for the business, you've got to get in there, you've got to capture that lead, and then once they're in your pipeline, you've got to hold them there. And as you say, Glenn, that experience that you had is the perfect experience to ensure that you're going to now keep coming back to that person. Or if anyone is asking for recommendations, you're going to say, hey, I had this great experience with these people. That's great to get the lead through. But what happens after that? How do you retain that customer so that you don't lose them to the person next time who's fastest?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the sorts of things that they should be measuring so that we know where those bottlenecks are?
Yeah, so a lot of the time people are looking at revenue and traffic. They're looking at how many forms come through, all those sorts of things. And those are really good, but you want to really hone in on the specifics of things like revenue per inquiry coming through rather than traffic. on your site.
Yeah.
You want to look at the difference between how many people are starting your forms versus completing your forms, how many form submissions you're getting compared to going through into quoting and then quoting through to jobs. So as you said earlier, Glenn, where's that drop-off point coming from? And then looking at that, looking at how quick you are to respond, as you say. Are you responding much slower on the weekend than you are on a Monday? All those sorts of things that are relevant to your business rather than the stock standards that you're going to get in GA4 of traffic and conversion rate and click-through rate and return on ad spend.
Absolutely. And then what about what are those other things that you need to be thinking about before you spend all that money on a new site?
Yeah, so a lot of people go when things are starting to get a bit rough, maybe things are just feeling a bit stalemate for you. You've been in the business a long time and things are just a bit stagnant. Then they go, okay, so we need to have a refresh. We need to find some more motivation to get through the year. And they often look to rebranding. And that's great. They want to jump in and get a new website. You want to get up with the latest, hottest trends for websites and build something that looks beautiful and functional. And when you're looking at websites, you can get quoted anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. And I'm here for it. I think, a fantastic website is great, but
and that's just for a basic one, right?
That's just for a basic one. Yeah. You can go into the hundreds of thousands if you need some really in-depth functionality. But I always tell people that your brand is only as strong as its weakest touch point. Yep. And so you need to, before you go in and start building websites with forms and buttons and loads of pages and things, you need to think about who your customer is. Put yourself in your customer's shoes and how are they going to flow through that website to convert? Think about their entire experience from start to finish. How is the website? The website is just one point of the journey. And yes, a lot of the time it's the most important point because that's where the conversion takes place. But it is also just a small part of the experience, as we've just discussed. There's paid media, emails, social media, packaging, all those sorts of things that influence the website experience. So you have to step back and think, what is working on our website? What is working everywhere else? What isn't working? And then you can go from there to build out something that looks great and functions well.
Absolutely. And I would go as far to say as well that you really need to understand your core audience, especially if you're thinking about doing a refresh or a rebrand and you want to have this beautiful, clean, slick, amazing website. Doing that may actually harm your conversions. If your ideal client, and I'm going to use a real simple example here. If you are selling services to install free view antennas on homes, right? Who is it that is getting free view antennas put on their homes? Can't afford Sky. They want free TV. They don't have big budgets. A few free view boxes are couple of $100. They probably come with a lot of TVs these days. And so if they can't afford a smart TV and they need a free view antenna, they want cheap. And if your website looks too slick, too amazing, too sharp, and the next one they look at looks really simple, basic, and it's just got a good call to action, a cheap price, and something really simple for them to do, they are probably going to go with the guys that look cheap because it's all there in front of them. It's only $235 installed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Versus, hey, look at us. We're amazing. Look at our fleet of 15 vans and all our guys in our uniforms. Like, man, how do you pay for that? How did you pay for that website? How much do you charge?
Yeah, if you have to put your rates up to pay for that $50,000 website, it's absolutely possible that that's what's hurting your conversion.
So before you think about spending all of that money on all of those different problems that you're trying to solve, more ads, more visits, pretty site, doing the big discount, let's just get back to that basics and what you're saying earlier on, which is so right. What are the fundamental things that you need to be doing to ensure that the person who you're actually targeting has an experience they expect and they are willing to talk about to their friends?
Yeah, exactly. Nailed it on the head. Yeah.
What else have we got? Is that us? I mean, there is so much that we could talk about, but I think those basic fundamentals are just all people need to think about in that first instance. And I can hand on heart guarantee that any one of you that are watching this, if you did that sense check and you went through that experience as a customer or asked 4 or 5 of your friends to go through it or did a loom or recorded that journey, you will find things that you go, that's just a no-brainer. Why is it? If you are asking those questions and you are getting those people and getting that input and measuring those touch points, there is always those little tweaks that you can make to the UX that will have a massive impact over time across all channels and all ways that you are acquiring your customers. So, Hannah, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Glenn. It's been awesome.
And thanks again so much for all of the time and the wisdom that you have shared today. And I know from what we were talking about off air around how people are just, sometimes they're just so close to it that they can't see it. So, what you're saying that you're happy to have a quick look over somebody's site and give them a couple of tips if you like. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, sometimes you've just been in the business too long. You just know it like the back of your hand, and you just need an external person to have a look over it, go through the process as if they were a customer and spot those things that you're just a little bit blinded to. So if you're in that spot, then I'm absolutely happy to just take a quick look at it for you, do that sense check, and give you those quick wins.
Yeah. And we'll do that at no cost to you, not talking about a full UX CRO audit, but if you literally just want somebody to just give you that sense check and give you a couple of points, more than happy to. Reach out to Hannah and myself. We'll hook you up and you have a great one. We'll catch you next time.